Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast, Sunday the 1st of December. I'm Phil Carroll.
And I'm Kevin Hornsby.
December already. I mean, where has the year gone? It's quite crazy, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely flown by.
Yeah, another year. 2025 is literally round the corner. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? To think, well, I see these posts crop up and say, like, you know, are you one of those persons that thinks that 1990 was only 10, 15 years ago? And then you realize that it's actually 35 years ago. And you're like, what the heron? You know, it's just madness.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I remember 1987 and the crash. So there you go, in 1987. I was working and holy moly. So how long ago was that? 13 plus 24, 37 years ago. That's a lifetime for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, old git. End of story.
How's your week been anyway so far? I mean, I'm feeling a bit under the weather. I don't know about you. There's a lot of bugs going around at this part in the UK at the moment. The kids have been off a bit, and you know, colds, head colds, migraines, all sorts of weird little viruses going around at the moment.
Yeah, you can probably hear it in my voice. I've been sneezing a bit and a bit under the weather. And for sure the market's brightened me up and made me feel much better. Not. So yeah, I've just been cheering myself up with and my young daughter with dad jokes and trying to explain them to her, you know. So what do you call two monkeys that share an Amazon account? Prime mates.
My mates, good one.
So
I think you read me a few of these earlier, and a couple of them did sound like a bit like Jimmy Carr jokes. You know what I mean? Like the master of one. Like
you went to see Jimmy Carr, didn't you?
yeah.
But this one I thought was really good. This made me laugh out loud, which may be just about my sense of humor. Two guys walk into a bar. The third guy ducked. No, I think that's funny.
It's a good one. It's a good one. So let's have a look at some of the news stories that have dominated the headlines this week. I think the main one is the Israel and Hezbollah agreeing to a ceasefire as troops begin withdrawal. Obviously, we saw news of a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah declared this week following a diplomatic agreement brokered by the US and France. The truce, aimed at halting months of escalating violence, marks a significant step forward, ending hostilities that have displaced thousands and devastated infrastructure across Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed the ceasefire, stating Israel remains prepared to act decisively should Hezbollah violate the agreement. Lebanese officials welcomed the truce but emphasized the need for political solutions to prevent further escalations. Israel has 60 days to withdraw under the terms of the deal, and it's all about getting Israeli residents back into their towns near the border with Lebanon. So very welcome news.
They say it's all about Israelis. There was 1.2 million Lebanese, not 60,000 Israelis that had to leave their homes. My friend who lives in just outside Beirut sent me this last night. It's like waking up from a very long bad dream, a nightmare. There is a ceasefire now. You can say the war is over. Last night, hours before the ceasefire was activated, it was one of the worst nights with one strike after the other, after the other. As soon as the ceasefire started, almost all the displaced people returned back to their houses, villages, and cities. That's if there was still a home left to go to.
Yeah.
So just like we're actually recording this on Thursday evening, Thanksgiving Day in the US. So just be thankful that you don't live in a country that gets the shit bombed out of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean that's a really powerful statement, and it is interesting hearing it, as you say, from people who are actually on the ground and suffering. I hate to say it's suffering, and you're absolutely right. You know, people, it's all very well. They're going to be happy that they can actually get in the cars, and we saw them exiting with, you know, that they're effectively their household, their life belongings on the back of the roof of the cars, and now they're all returning in droves. But the ultimate point you make is, Kev, some of them haven't even got a home to go to. They've got a shell of a house to go back to.
Yeah, there's nothing to go back to. I mean, the statement continues. During the last 2 months, our team did an amazing job from shopping. I mean, this is the thing. These people didn't have money even, right?
No.
I mean, I did send some money, but it was pennies like compared to what they needed. Shopping, giving, cooking, playing, visiting, crying, laughing, and listening. And because all of these things, all these people didn't have anything to do. They couldn't go to their jobs. They couldn't do anything. So and their kids couldn't go to school. So they needed people to look after them, people to teach them, people to do all
Yeah.
these sort of things. So sometimes we watch the news, don't we? And it's like, oh, boom, there's another bomb. But just imagine if they started bombing parts of whatever city you want to choose, London, Manchester, Birmingham, and what would happen in those places? Like what to all the people that had to be displaced and go
Yeah.
somewhere else? It's like,
I've heard the same that it was not, it's been downplayed by how many bombs, or the salvo as they call it, that have been constant. It's pretty much been constant.
ah, yes, no, the figures did come out, but I don't think they're even accurate. But it was 3,500 people died, mostly civilians. I think a tenfold factor on that have been injured. And on top of that, you've then got, I think, tens of thousands of people have had their houses destroyed completely. So how many families is that? How many, situations?
Well, what I find
I mean,
interesting.
and I'm not picking sides here either. I'm not
No, no,
saying
no.
Hezbollah, Israel, though the reality is Hezbollah's Iranian backed
Iran. Yeah.
and has been there for many decades. They were supposed to stay behind a certain line in southern Lebanon, and they didn't. They moved into it and effectively took over it. And I think that's basically what Israel have now done, is basically said, you've got to stick to what you said you were going to do, which is, get beyond that line and stay there. But yeah, it's not gone
But
away.
for me, what's interesting on this one is that, I think you just highlighted the point there, that because the Hezbollah are Iranian backed, and you've got obviously the ongoing war in Gaza, with Hamas. I'm wondering whether, like, whoever brokered the deal, all we know is it was obviously, as I say, the US and the French. Presumably, Iran has to or must have agreed to this ceasefire, okay, because they're the ones ultimately who are calling the shots with Hezbollah. Will there potentially be now doors opening to negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza? That's the next question that comes out of this.
Well, we certainly hope so, because I mean Gaza has gone quiet, obviously because of Lebanon. And I don't mean gone quiet as in it hasn't been bombed, because it's been continually bombed.
Yeah,
Again, unless you have some sort of agreement, and it seems like there's two intractable sides, you're very unlikely to get peace. The problem is Israelis are not following, or the state of Israel. Let's not confuse the state of Israel with Jews. The state of Israel is not following any rules or any international laws. It's basically going in and bombing the crap out of everybody because Big Brother USA is behind them.
yeah, and you
Okay.
make a good point, because have you seen the latest that the UNICTY, which is the basically the war criminal, where they try all the war criminals? They have actually put an arrest warrant out for Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, David Lammy, our foreign advisor, or our whole foreign secretary, has basically said that if Netanyahu steps foot into the UK, he will have to be arrested.
Yeah. Well, that's because we've got a Labour government now, not a Conservative one. But anyway, that's another story. Yeah, it's not good. I pray for peace. I don't know how it's gonna come, to be honest, because you've got two completely detractable sides that are not willing to negotiate with each other. And yeah, and in the meantime, we've got Ukraine, where Biden has suddenly said, "Ah, yes, you can fire these missiles, these." Both the US, UK, whatever it happens to be, missiles into Russia. Like, what is he playing at? And
Well, yeah, but
cause
it's not just them. I mean, UK have also agreed for use of the Storm Shadows as well. So,
no,
ultimately,
no, but
like,
that's what I mean. What are they playing at? Are they trying to cause the sort of the Third World War, literally nuclear holocaust for everybody? Because we joke about it, but that's basically what he's doing, isn't it? As my last salvo, I'll let you bomb the crap out of Russia. Unbelievable. And I'm pretty sure Trump is going to come in there and he's going to have some opinions and some solutions, unlike this current status quo, which is just like no solution. There
yeah,
has to be a solution, whether it be Russia keeps the Donbass area and
yeah,
gets itself back in the box and, you know, tail between the legs. Ukraine won't like that, but Ukraine has just lost hundreds of thousands of its men.
yeah,
How, even as a population, how is it going to
yeah.
survive? It's
not good.
almost
But
not.
while we're on this, that segues nicely on Trump, as obviously as he prepares to assume office as the 45th president of the US. His pledge to impose sweeping tariffs on imports is causing ripples of concern among businesses worldwide. For the UK, America remains the largest single foreign market, and fears are growing about the potential economic fallout. Trump has proposed universal tariffs of up to 20% on all imports to the US, with specific threats of 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada and 35% on Chinese imports, set to begin on his first day in office. So obviously there's projections there. Some people saying that there's suggesting a potential £20 billion loss in export value, which would be about a 0.8% dent to GDP. Certain sectors, including fish, refined petroleum products, could face revenue drops of up to 20%. But obviously they just highlight the vulnerability of international trade amidst this protectionist policies. So what do you make of that, Kev? I mean, it's just an interesting one, isn't it? These tariffs, these Trump tariffs.
Whether we like it or not, in terms of business, Trump's a bit of a bully, isn't he? Right.
Yeah.
So you are the biggest position in the world, if you like, in terms of purchasing power and all that sort of stuff. Though you also have the biggest debt and all the rest of it as well.
Yeah.
The reality is, he's saying, not putting up with any of you guys. I'm going to be in a strong negotiating position for all of this. We're going to inbound stuff to the US as much as possible. So we're going to make it expensive for you, so it becomes okay for us. How's it going to benefit? It's going to benefit a lot of different businesses in the US, but it's also going to hurt a lot of businesses in the US. You look at Apple. Apple don't produce anything in the US, or virtually nothing. So they're going to produce everything in China, and then they're going to have to pay big import duties to bring it into the US or wherever it happens to be.
It's made in China, so it'll be 35% on that one, won't it?
Yeah. So now the reality is, everybody's talking that it might actually only cost about $25 to $40 to make an iPhone. So, it's going to hit their bottom line, but is it really going to kill
Yeah.
them? No, it's not. Considering we all pay £1,000 or $1,000 or whatever the figure is for your iPhone, there's no way it costs that much. It's
No.
been a protected moat, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and that segues nicely. You mentioned, obviously the potential there for American firms. I mean, there's been a big story in the news over here about the UK government considering incentives to boost EV sales and meet this 22% EV sales target for 2024. Obviously, the big challenge is that there's been job cuts at the likes of Stellantis, 10,000 jobs globally, as they focus on electrification. Ford has announced they're cutting 4,000 jobs across Europe. Vauxhall also announced that they're going to close their Luton plant, which is an absolute shocker for the UK car manufacturing. And then Nissan is also expecting to axe 9,000 jobs. Now, just to get this under a sort of like and a percentage amount. So basically, this new levy, as they include it, says that 22% of all new car sales must be EVs in 2024, rising to 80% by 2030. As a complete ban on the sale of new petrol and diesel cars are going to be implemented by 2035, which obviously the Conservatives put back, and then the Labour are talking about bringing that forward to 2030. But there's going to be a £15,000, or there is a £15,000 penalty per vehicle outside the target. And I just don't think there's simply enough demand for EV for any of these manufacturers to hit 22% of their car sales in EV. It seems madness.
Gonna have to stop selling cars, aren't they?
Yeah.
Only sell EVs, because the petrol cars. I mean, if you were
What you mean?
going
Don't
to,
give them a choice. Just don't. You've
yeah,
no
yeah,
choice. Yeah.
you've no choice. It's an EV or an EV.
Yeah.
If you're going, I mean, you're in the UK. I'm not. I don't really have. It's like spotting a needle in a haystack to find an electric car here. Okay, they're there, but like, it's literally, oh, look, there's an electric car. If you had a choice now, financially, forget about the green aspect, just right for a moment.
Yeah.
Financial, because we can question this. This is the issue now, isn't it? Everybody's starting to realize,
Yeah.
hey, it's not quite as green as everybody thinks it is, right? But if you had a choice now between Model X and Model Y, and Model X was fairly economical petrol engine that did everything that Model Y did, the same car, and you know what you're getting with Model X, you know what you're getting with Model Y, which would you choose right now? If there's no incentives to buy one or the other, which one's going to depreciate more? Which is the best financial decision?
So I think to answer that, you have to say, what do I want out of the car? What is my typical journey? If you're only doing sort of say you're doing 20-mile round trip a day, then probably EV works better in terms of the charging, the costs of running it. You're not going to worry about running out of a battery. If you're going to be doing longer journeys over 200 to 300 miles, then a petrol, a normal, internal combustion engine would be the car for you. It's all down to what you want. But I think to also break it down a bit further, if they were the same price, then probably and there was an incentive on there, then people would go for the electric vehicle because of the cost of charging it is cheaper if you do it off peak. But as you say, the depreciation on some of these EVs is absolutely shocking. Like, I've seen some of them do £100,000 in 6 months. Some of these Porsche models, these Taycans, the fully EV, have lost £100,000 in almost driven off the forecourt. So yeah, it's a tough one. I just don't think there's enough demand. I mean, the other thing is I heard a story this week about someone who drove down to Devon in their EV, set off with about 200 miles. They went from London to Devon, and they wanted to go and charge it, I think around Bristol Point, sort of about halfway mark. They had to wait 1 hour and 35 minutes for a charging point at the service station they were at, because there was only 2 cars there, but they were there, and then there was somebody else waiting on. So what do you do in that situation? You have to wait, whereas with a petrol, internal combustion, fill it up, away you go, no problems with timings, range anxiety, or anything like that. I just think they're flawed as an actual long distance tool.
Yeah, they're flawed. They're a city car.
Yeah.
And I think this Tesla taxi situation is where they're perfect.
Yeah.
You know,
Autonomous.
yeah, autonomous taxi comes, picks you up, takes you to somewhere. If you can imagine those around London, that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Get on your phone, app, boom, arrives 1 minute later, you jump in the back, it knows where you're going, boom, you're there, stops, then it picks someone else up, and sorry, taxi drivers, but you're out of a job, basically.
Yeah, and hopefully a
Um,
lot smoother than those fully electric EV taxis that you have in London now that feel like you're on like a hair trigger. They throw you around the thing. You know what I mean? They're so uncomfortable, those taxis now in London. But
but it seems by the laws you're talking about that the UK are bringing in, they're basically giving you no choice. They're forcing you. So within 5 to 6 years, 80% of all cars have to be electric, then you don't really have a choice. Now, the question then is, will we have a time now? Because we do have vehicles. I mean, my own car is 33, 34 years old, right? It's not the best, but it's a Jeep and it goes very nicely. Thank you very much. Long distances, nightmare, but short distances going around the town, no problem.
yeah,
Will people keep a 2015 car now and drive it for another 20, 30 years? Because the cars are much better than they used to be.
you're absolutely right. And a lot of
I don't
people,
know.
there's actually an article in
Is
the paper saying that the people are keeping hold of the vehicles longer now.
Yeah, no, without doubt, we're going to keep hold of our cars longer because they're not rust buckets anymore, and they don't break down. And even if they do break down, in most cases, they can be fixed fairly easily. I
Yeah.
mean, in this country, everything can be fixed, but even in the UK, you can fix most things, and it's not
Do you
that
think
difficult.
I mean, I know you're not massively into cars, and I could talk about this until the cows come home, but do you think the car industry is very much broken in a sense of there's no direction? Like, there's no direction for these manufacturers. Like, they're told to sell EV, they're punished if they don't meet the targets, but that yet the demand isn't there for them, so people aren't actually wanting them, so they're going to get punished for like £15,000 per vehicle that it misses the target. We're seeing job losses now because the manufacturers are being fined too much. What would you do if you were trying to manufacture a car? Would you want to go fully EV like Jaguar? I
I
mean, I sent you the
I would
link to the new
stop.
Jaguar.
I would stop and go out of business, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Or I would put a Jaguar advert out and kill my company in two
yeah.
seconds.
I sent you that
30,
video, and you went, "Is this a fashion advert? Is this a fashion
30
advert?"
seconds, 30 seconds later, your company's image and everything it stands for has disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, and every reason why someone would buy a Jaguar is not in that
Do
advert.
you know what their original marketing slogan was? It was grace, space, and pace. Yeah. And it's beautiful. The 3 words, very, very beautiful words. Now you look at it and it's just this like reimagination of bright colors, people dressed, or I don't know, them, theys dressed up in different clothes. It looks like a fashion advert, all And I just thought, oh my God, this has gone woke. This brand, this is the reimagination of Jaguar, a truly patriotic British brand that says, style, wealth, exuberance, racing pedigree, all that sort of thing. And now you look at it and think, so they've given the job one brand design engineer who's 26 years of age, who knows nothing about cars, nothing about the brand's history, has gone and this is the reimagination. When you give somebody in the advertising space that task, could it ruin a brand?
Well, it just did. So yes, it was in a way the Olympics brand was tarnished by that same guy who did the opening ceremony thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
He turned it completely woke, regardless of your views. Still, the majority of people think this is woke and are against it. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah.
Even the young people are like, what the hell's that? Like,
Yeah.
what is it?
Well, that's what I think they've aimed it at. Is apparently there's going to be a launch on like December the 3rd in the US at this big design sort of awards. There's a big meeting taking place, and they're going to launch this new Jaguar. Now, from what I've seen from the spy shots, the camo shots, it looks almost like a Chrysler 300C, like a big estate bus. I'll send you some pictures of it. You can have a look. And I don't know what they're trying to do. It's almost like they're trying to take on Tesla. Now, if Jaguar thinks they can take on Tesla, well, good luck to them, because I think they're going to fail miserably. But anyway, we've ranted on enough. Let's have a look at some of the movers and shakers this week, Kev. I mean, the biggest riser I've seen on the board on SharePad is Oracle Power, ORCP is the ticker. They're up some 150%. They announced final assay results from November 24 air core drilling campaign at the Northern Zone hosted gold project. Highlights included high-grade intercepts, 8 meters at 4.86 grams per ton, including a meter at 18.22 and 6 meters at 3, confirming shallow gold mineralization within a 600-meter wide porphyry system. So that one looks good. It's moved the stock up 150%. Greatland Gold busted out above the 7 pence. We talked a little bit about them last week, didn't we, and where they would be by the end of the month. I think you said it'd be interesting to see whether they could get back to their 8p where they were this time last year. What do you make of that move above the 7 pence?
Yeah, I think it's waiting, isn't it? It's waiting for the final. Yes, it's all happening, and the news, I suppose, of production and income, which will be imminent. It will come, and I think when that happens, it will. It won't skyrocket, but I think it's gonna slowly move up.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's going to be a mover and a shaker next year as people start to realize the revenues that it produces.
Did you think the market's waiting for the first production, or just for the completion and everything, all the I's and T's, dotting the I's and
I think it's a bit of both, but you've also got to understand that there's been £100 million placing, right?
Yeah.
And you right now, if you sell your shares even in the sixes, you were what, 40% up from 4.8p. So people have been taking their profits.
There's a lot of churn. There's a lot of churn, isn't there?
Being good volume on a regular basis, but now it's creeping up, and what is going to be left are the people who are happy to follow the story now for the next year or two or more.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt it's going to be an institutional play as it goes forward. It's not going to be the private investors that make a big difference here. It's going to be the big institutions that are going to hold the majority of this, you would imagine.
So Technology Minerals TM1 completed the sale of LRH Resources, including the Leinster Lithium Project licenses in Ireland, to European Lithium, an ASX listed company, for 1.371 million shares in Critical Metals Core, listed on Nasdaq CRML, valued at $10 million. A portion of the shares will be transferred to a director under a commission agreement and to Global Battery Metals to terminate the joint venture, with TSXV and shareholder approval pending. Shares are held in escrow until February 2025, and Alex Stanbury, CEO, highlighted the sale as aligning with the strategy to advance and monetize early stage projects. The delayed annual report is also expected shortly. So good to see some news from Technology Minerals. There was also
obviously at the minute it's suspended, and I mean we have to say we picked this as one of our 12 stocks last year. This year I should say, it's been absolutely horrendous performance due to many delays that nobody anticipated. To be honest, I think if we're really honest, that people both came on here and talked publicly that things were going to be moving much faster, and they didn't, and that's being polite, I think. I think if they can get the accounts out now, obviously that news of the IRH sort of takes us to a different place. And the reason why I think it takes us to a different place is because you've got a situation now where a very lowly valued market cap of £2 million is suddenly has an asset which is probably worth, after taxation and everything else, on the sale of I think it's CRML shares that they have in the US, or is it Canada? I can't remember which, but anyway, one of the other.
NASDAQ listed CRML, yeah.
NASDAQ, okay, so it's in the US. So they're currently worth, after they've given their portions to different people and maybe paid tax, they're probably worth around the £4 million mark, £4 to £4.5 million mark, with a market cap of 2 million. Now, obviously, they owe Atlas money. They owe Jonathan Swan money, who's lent them money over the past period of time as well. So, yeah, it looks like it's getting its act together a year late, and maybe more than a year late, but it seems to be, because there was another issue or another thing that they announced through Halfords as well, that they've started to be getting batteries. And I think they've had batteries through Kodo as well. So it's starting to happen. But when you've got a business with quite a large fixed cost, and you're not bringing in the money, then it's an eating machine, isn't it? It just eats cash, and if you don't have it. But I think there's been cutbacks upon cutbacks. I have been in touch with Alex Stanbury and been speaking to him on a fairly regular basis. And I'm hoping there's some light at the end of the tunnel. We haven't been saying anything because really there hasn't been any light at the end of the tunnel. But I think things are turning around, and I'm hopeful that we're going to have maybe a slightly better end to the year, but certainly not recovering to anywhere near like what it was. Though the business case is still there if it actually does manage to produce. So we'll see.
Yeah, fingers crossed on that one.
I mean, if you think about it, just one last comment. If you think about it, Recyclist owes Tech Minerals over I think it's £8 or £9 million sterling. Okay, so if you talk about the asset it holds and the money that Recyclist would be able to pay back if it's effective and it works, you're talking about £12 million. Maybe it owes about half of that. So you're still talking about £6 million market capitalization, which is 3 times its current market cap. So, that's what we're talking about. But basically, I think it's starting to come out of the woods, but it needs to get back on the market and get going.
Yeah. Okay, good. Guardian Metal Resources, they obviously announced significant drill results from the ongoing campaign at the 100% owned Pilot Mountain in Nevada tungsten project. Highlights included a 46-meter mineralized interval from drill hole Pr10r1ty, which is one of the longest recorded at the site, with like 0.413% tungsten trioxide, 12.2 grams per ton of silver, 2,476 parts per million copper. And we saw 5% copper there as well at one of the other drill holes. It was PM24014 which intersected that. So looks very encouraging. Obviously, we caught up with Oliver in the week, and this is what he had to say.
What we've done here is we've released the next 4 holes. So assays are now streaming in. I think, what did we announce? We're on hole 38. So this is up to hole 17 now. So we haven't even reported half the holes yet, Phil. And obviously we're still drilling. So this is super exciting stuff. We've released 3 batches now, so we're keeping the market informed. I want everyone just to be cognizant of that, or as the results come in, we're batching them up and getting them out to you guys so you know what's going on. We've had some fantastic results to date. You mentioned the high grade intercepts from this hole. I think a big takeaway for me was the width. 46 meters is, I think, one of the widest, if not the widest or longest interval of continuous mineralization hit at Pilot Mountain, and that's significant. A lot of tungsten deposits globally are vein hosted. And it's important to recognize that, because vein hosted deposits, you might get a really high grade, 1, maybe 2% WO3, maybe even higher, but it's over narrow width, half a meter, maybe a meter. 46 meters is what we've hit here. And even within that interval, we have up to 1.9% WO3. So we have some really high grades. We have up to 1.99% WO3 within that 46 meter interval. So, we're working really hard. There's a lot of news to come here up until Christmas. Drilling is ongoing, so it's all systems go. And obviously the macro continues to get really exciting here with export restrictions coming into an effect in less than a week's time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so with the PM24, 14 and 17 returning these high grade tungsten, and obviously, the copper results are good as well. I saw some of them up to 5% copper equivalent, which is, it's high grade. You can't just talk that down. So how do these findings enhance the overall resource potential of the Pilot Mountain project?
Yeah, so I mean it's really, you got to take all the holes into context to really figure out what this looks like. But what we're doing is we're drilling in areas where there's low drill density. That's the important thing to remember here. And a lot of the historical holes, and what I'll do is I'll try to highlight this more going forward as to what we're doing here and what the kind of the thesis is. But a lot of holes that are drilled historically were vertical. So they're just straight up and down holes. And this is a subvertical mineralized body. So verticals are not an optimal way to drill this. In fact, if you talk to a geologist today, they say that's a horrible idea to drill a vertical hole in a subvertical mineralized body, because you're not
Ed's always joked about when we've been on site. He said, "Why don't you just drill directly through the strike into the middle and get you the best results?" And everyone's going, "You're crazy, Kev. You're crazy."
Well, that's called a director's special, Phil. It's a Canadian term that some companies do. But yes, if it's vertical and you drill through the guts of it, you're going to get potentially the longest intercept. But also what can happen is you can miss it, right? Because if you're drilling something that's vertical and it just deviates a little bit one way and you're drilling vertical, you're going to go out of it, right? So what we're doing is we're stepping back to the north and we're drilling across it. So what we're seeing is, for instance, in hole 17, we started to hit mineralization at 66.4 meters, right? And the vertical hole that we're sort of intercepting, if you actually put this into context in the cross section, we're hitting mineralization much higher up and towards the north than just that vertical hole could tell us. So I guess, vertical holes are not commonly used anymore. And this is the reason why, because when you go and drill a horizontal hole, you get a much better picture. And realistically, you can understand really what the scale is here. So the width is fantastic. The copper enrichment we're seeing, you mentioned, up to 5%. That's copper, not copper equivalent. So we're seeing some really interesting copper results, and that also includes silver and zinc. So all four metals matter here. The most important one is tungsten, and ecstatic to be drilling holes like this, and a lot more to come, which is important to remember.
Did you ever play that game Kerplunk, Oliver?
Maybe it didn't make it to Canada. I don't know that one.
Kerplunk is that game where you have to put the sticks in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then you pull all the balls in and then you pull it out. Okay. I'm trying to give people a visual image of what you're doing in terms of the drilling.
Yeah.
Because you're going sideways, in Kerplunk you can't put one in straight from the top, but you can put it in from the side. And then it either supports the balls or it doesn't support the balls. If the balls fall down, then they fall down. So I'm just trying to give people a visual image of how we're drilling and the size now of this, because I was quite amazed when I read it. 46 meters is a hell of a long strike. I mean, from the perspective of normal tungsten, as you said, it's in small veins and it's not very very long. So what does that tell us geologically about the sort of I don't know what the right word is geologically, but the power of the thrust that had to come to bring this metal to the surface?
Yeah, well, so it's a skarn zone, right? So it's it's not vein hosted. A lot of times, skarns can be kind of narrow and wispy things. In this case, we're seeing size, right? And that's really important. So, it's obviously it's a rich system. It's sizable, from an east-west strike perspective, extends for, I think it's over 400 meters now, and obviously down dip as well. And it's got not just tungsten, but copper, silver, and zinc, and obviously in appreciable quantities. So it's a really, really good system. And just as a reminder, this is one of 4 known at surface mineralized tungsten, copper, silver, zinc skarns. We have Good Hope, garnet, and gunmetal as well. So this is just one of those 4 zones. So really, there's a lot of scale here. And we really believe that all 4 of those zones are connected. And a lot of the work we're doing suggests that that is the case. So this is the biggest one right now, and it's accessible. But there's a much bigger picture here, and we're going to continue to unveil that as we progress this property over the next couple months and years.
And in meters, how far apart are the different ones that you're talking about? Obviously, Pilot Mountain is the center, and where we're going to have a resource base. But how far apart are the other ones in meters or kilometers?
Yeah, so Good Hope is about 1.5 kilometers to the north, and then Gunmetal and Garnet are up in the foothills of the mountains. another kilometer and a half away. So, between the four of them, we have a really big footprint here. So like I said, there's scale here, and we're just scratching the surface here with these results, with a lot more to come.
And what do you think when you say they're connected? Do you think there's like stock work between them, and then there's been four different sort of eruptions, if you like, or four skarns, if you like, that have come up, but in between all of that, there will be stock work?
Yeah, so the way these systems typically work is you have a porphyry that's in place, right? Your porphyry is your mineralized sort of intrusive body. It's magmatic, and then as it gets closer to the surface, the pressure is released, and that's when your mineralized fluids they pop off and they move upwards through the crust. And in the case of skarns, a skarn forms when these hot mineralized fluids intersect a limestone unit or a reactive carbonate. So what's happening is we have some sort of porphyry at depth. I mean, we've already identified one of the porphyries, but these fluids come up, and anywhere they can go, if there's faults or there's other kind of ways for them to migrate up, anywhere they find limestone, they can react and they can form these great deposits. So it's probably one central porphyry, or there's clustered porphyries, and there's a bigger, as these fluids are rising up, they're finding all these different limestone units that exist and then creating these deposits. So it's one kind of big mineralizing system here, and desert shale is just a part of it.
And sorry for asking you so many geological questions.
No, it's okay, of course.
The porphyry then has to be, or does it have to be, very rich metallically, or is it sent all its metal up?
Yeah, so I mean it is a good question. Typically, you find that the porphyries will retain some of their mineralized content, just to put it simply. So like I said, as the pressure is released, certain fluids release off, but then others remain in the porphyry, and that's when it crystallizes. So you typically, if you have mineralized skarns, you're going to have mineralized porphyry as well. And we know that with Porphyry South. We drilled almost 400 meters of moly-rich porphyry rock, and now, as Phil mentioned in this release, we've now hit copper enrichment within the porphyry as well. So typically what you find is within your porphyry, you're going to find similar signatures to that of your skarn. So if we have tungsten, copper, silver, zinc in the skarn, oftentimes you're going to find at least one or two of those metals in the what's called a causative porphyry. So the porphyry that sort of caused all this, or was the focal point, you're going to find sort of similar enrichment within those two bodies.
So what we're looking at is a big body underneath, which is the porphyry, and then potentially four like legs, if you like, if it's a upturned stool or an upturned chair, that we've got the porphyry down there, and then four legs, which at the minute we're looking at Pilot Mountain, drilling Pilot Mountain, sorry, Desert Scheelite within Pilot Mountain, and then there'll be three others that you will also go and have a look at.
Yeah, so, and potentially zones in between as well. I mean, it's it's a big property. There's a lot of mineralization at surface. So, we're focused on the task at hand, which is, getting Desert Scheelite as close to production ready and quickly as we can. But there's a big story here. So we'll continue to scratch kind of unveil that picture as we progress. But I think you kind of put it correctly there, which is it's a big system and there's a lot more to be discovered here.
So being in Nevada, weather's not an issue. You're going to be drilling throughout, I presume, because it's America, you're going to have a Christmas break, holiday season probably, holiday January, and then start again in January. And you're continuing to drill on Desert Scheelite and continuing to go, so it's not going to stop at hole 38.
No, we're still going. Like you mentioned, there's a holiday break for sure. The drillers and our guys need a rest, as do the rest of us. But we'll be back on site in January as early as we can and going again. I mean, we put out a photo yesterday, I think it was, of the drilling. There's not a snowflake on the ground. I think it's still about 10, 12, 13 degrees Celsius. So that's why we love Nevada. And even if it does snow, it's road accessible. We can get there, bit of snow plowing, and off we go. So we're going to obviously take a holiday break here at some stage and then back at it in January, and off we go again. So 2025 is going to be the busiest year yet for Guardian Metal.
And your second new exciting project that you've got the option agreement on, are we expecting some results from that shortly? And will that be concluded this side of Christmas, or is it going to take a bit longer? I suppose it's an impossible question to answer, so you're not going to answer it, but we'll ask anyway.
I'll dance around it. The DD period ends, I believe it's January 23rd. That's the deadline. So we are progressing really well with that. We don't want to go that full distance. Obviously, we put it in there just in case. We've completed most of our required DD steps, so we will have an update out shortly. I'll just say that to get myself out of trouble, but shortly we will have an update with some of the results from the DD sampling campaign, some of the other work that we've been doing to understand this project. But, the scale here is important to remember. Obviously it's subject to the DD being satisfactory and us entering into the option, but, it's historic resource. I need to say it's historic, of 31,000 tons of WO3 at 0.43%. So it's not that much smaller than Pilot Mountain from a historic perspective. And obviously being patented ground, having the historic infrastructure in place, it's a really significant asset. And if we do sign the definitive, I think it's, potentially game changing here as we scale this business up from, one fantastic asset to multiple assets in Nevada as we look to really grab the tungsten mantle in the US, so to say.
I think you've timed that one to what feels like perfection. The acquisition in terms of the news that we saw. We've seen China obviously tightening their export controls on the critical materials. We've seen gallium, is it germanium, obviously rare earths, and then antimony as well. And then obviously we saw the announcement, I think it was from Nikkei Asia on the 16th of November, where basically they said that sister company of Financial Times, Nikkei, said that China plans to tighten export controls on key dual-use technologies and items in 2 weeks, including the raw materials and metals such as tungsten, graphite, magnesium. So just talk us through how what sort of impact this potentially has on Guardian going forward as China sort of tightens these restrictions.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, Phil. We've been talking about the potential for export restrictions out of China for months and months now, really since the antimony export ban. And people were kind of looking at me like I was crazy. And I kept on saying, well, no, I mean, people in the industry are saying that tungsten is next for all the reasons the data points that we've discussed. China controls 86%. The U.S. has no domestic production. It's a key defense metal. I mean, all the data points pointing to what is happening now. So I don't want to be too smug about it, but it's obviously good to have sort of something that we have signaled is likely to happen. The extent of the restrictions are still sort of, we don't know the full details yet, and so we'll be watching the kind of the news closely over the next few weeks here to see how this all unfolds. But I think just the reality is, and really the takeaway, regardless of what the export restrictions end up being, is the U.S. needs a domestic source. Having a domestic source of tungsten solves this. And with the tariff regime that's in place right now, I mean, even 25% tariff, the downstream guys in the US they're struggling because they're having to pay, spot plus 25% for their tungsten imports from China, right? That becomes really challenging. And if tariffs go up even further, which there's speculation that they may do, a 60% tariff makes it uneconomic to import from China. And that's really the point of tariffs, because then they need to look at the US and go, can we do this in the US, right? Because if you can mine it in the US, there's no tariffs. So really these tariffs support us tremendously. It makes our project and our product that much more competitive in the global landscape, especially for downstream guys in the US. So it sounds cliched, but it's the right metal at the right time at the right place. And I hate to say that, but it's just so true. And so, I think it perfectly illustrates what we're doing here and why we're so excited.
Yeah, I don't think you hate to say it at all, Oliver, let's be honest. You're very happy to say it.
Well, in this case, I'm happy, yes.
So, Oliver, what you're saying is on the, I just want to take you back to the option agreement that you've got. That old resource was developed on straight holes.
So no, it's not entirely on straight holes, Kev. I mean, there's been multiple years of drilling. Like I said, a lot of these sections within the resource the resource is built off of the vertical hole that was drilled. So what we're doing is we're stepping back and drilling angled holes to give us a better sense as to what the width of this mineralized body is. And to see, 46 meters of mineralization in hole 17 signals that the zone is wider than obviously a vertical hole can tell us.
So the dual use that you were talking about in the RNS, just give us a bit more detail on that in terms of the dual use of tungsten in terms of all the different things that it can be used for.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a kind of a unique but important designation, and it came up in the restriction announcement from China was dual use. They're looking at dual use metals, with tungsten being considered dual use. The reason it is dual use is because it's used, number one, in the military. That's one of the uses, and the second one is in multiple industrial applications. So we've talked about all the different ways that tungsten is used, but it has civilian and defense military applications, which tungsten acutely has both those use cases, and that's why it's such an important metal. It's because it supports industry and it supports defense, and there's not many metals that have that same dual use that tungsten does. And in this crazy world, it's obviously the defense side of things that they want to prevent. Let's be honest. Well, I mean, the US needs it as well. The reality is they've left themselves sort of
short in a big way.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the defense is really pushing the narrative right now. You know, the much more tungsten is consumed in various sort of civilian industrial applications. But, you know, the fact that US has no domestic supply, they're reliant on China, they need it for, you know, ammunitions, tank armors, is a long list of important defense applications that need tungsten. So all signs point to the need for a domestic source. And Guardian positioned ourselves for this, you know, 3.5 years ago. And we're now just really getting into stride here. We're drilling some fantastic holes. This is going to support the PFS, the updated mine plan. So the timing is great. And we're really, really obviously excited about this. And Tempai Ute can really add a lot of firepower to what we're doing as well. So looking forward to tying up that DD and continuing to push this narrative forward at a time when the US needs domestic production, period.
Yeah, indeed. I think you're right place, right time. And it hasn't just happened overnight, as you said. So, yeah.
No.
Good luck, and we look forward to speaking to you again over the next few weeks as more and more information comes out. Obviously, both on Desert Sheelite in terms of all of these holes and the option agreement. As you notice, I keep calling it the option agreement because I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly. But yeah, I mean, I think there's lots and lots to go on. We could talk about the potential positives of all of those things. We've got the garnet, we've got the silver, we've got copper, which is all going to add up to quite a great equivalent metal in situ valuation. And yeah, we look forward to all of that as we go forward.
Well, thanks for the time, gents. Let's chat again before the holidays. There's going to be a lot of news over the next couple of weeks here. So yeah, exciting times ahead.
Oliver Friesen, CEO of Guardian Metal Resources, thanks very much for appearing on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, gents.
Cobra Resources also announced that they completed a second bench scale in situ recovery study at the Boland Project in South Australia, demonstrating exceptional permeability in ionically bound rare earth element REE mineralization within permeable sands, a unique and cost-efficient geological setting for ISR. So, what did you make of the Cobra news as well? Obviously, we caught up with Rupert in the week, but what are your thoughts on Cobra's progressing? Because we haven't really sort of delved too deep into that one yet.
I think if the drilling goes successfully, now that he's proved it up, has improved that it can be done. And it was a bit of an eye opener when you listen in a minute when he was talking about that it's gone from 150 days to 1 day to be able to get these ionic rare earths out of the ground and into a carbonate or solution. Yeah, I think it's obviously got risks, and the risks are probably more market related maybe than actually company related, because I think the resource is there. They're going to prove it up, but that obviously has to happen. But I think it's going to be pretty strategic, actually, to be honest. What comes to my mind is this is a very early sovereign metals type play, right? Where they've got a large asset. They can get it out the ground quite quickly in, surprisingly enough, the same way as sovereign talking about getting it out. It's in Australia.
Hydro mining, etc.
Yeah. It's in Australia, so probably a better jurisdiction than some of the ones in Africa. Yeah, and obviously at this minute nobody really sees the value in it, but obviously 1.7 million raised at not much of a discount. Somebody sees some value in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like the look of it, to be honest. I think over the next 12 to 24 months, I think it will be one to watch.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that they've spelt out what they're going to do exactly with that money. If you look in the RNS, you'll see that there's a table at the bottom that says proceeds are going to be used in 1.7 million raised, 300,000 for this, 300, and it breaks everything down, the scoping study, all the next set of testing. They're going to produce this MREC, this magnetic rare earth carbonate, which is going to be, that's going to have great value to the company to prove that their methods for the ISR actually work and that they can produce this end product. So have a listen to what Rupert had to say anyway. It's interesting looking at these this second bench scale study. Can you just explain, Rupert, the significance of the exceptional permeability results from the second bench scale ISR study and how they compare to the first?
Yeah, sure, Phil. Look, I think in context in mining, sometimes there's a lot of different triggers, both geologically and physically, that can limit operations and limit their capacity to get their ore out of the ground or the minerals that they want to extract. And for in situ recovery, permeability of your ore body is key. And what this testing has shown is we have exceptional permeability. And that permeability means that we can extract ore very quickly and probably increase our recoveries of our existing or our first bench scale study owing to the increased permeability. So for context, the first bench scale study took 150 days, and owing to the permeability in the second sample, it's been finished in 24 hours, and we expect that to drop the acid consumption and hopefully yield higher recoveries. So it's very exciting, and we'll have those recovery results in the next week or two. So plenty of short-term news on the horizon.
Yeah, I mean, it's a significant increase, isn't it, in terms of the test, obviously 24 hours compared to 150 days.
We are an ionic sand that hosts ionic mineralization within organics. So it's not your typical impermeable clay, which most saprolite-hosted atypical ionic projects are. So that sand gives us our permeability. And so what this testing has done, and probably the biggest driver of the difference is, and I must follow up, we're using ANSTO, who are probably the leaders in both rare earth extraction and also ISR trial testing, but combining the two together is fairly unique, Phil, and it hasn't really been done before. So we're treading in some new waters, and we probably compromised the initial tests through the sample preparation. We brought in some saprolite, which is impermeable, and we homogenized that through that first test. And that probably flawed the results a little. So this second test was really to validate and confirm the permeabilities, or see if we got higher permeabilities from a cleaner ore sample. And these results have certainly shown that. So I think the key point is that first test gave us great economics. We had low acid consumption, high recoveries from a high-grade sample. And this second test really speeds up the process and only improves those economics.
So, Rupert, why did you put the saprolite in the first place? Was there a logical reason why you put it in there when you did the first test?
Yeah, great question, Kevin. And look, getting very technical here, but there is another approach to doing bench scale ISR tests, and that's where you use a vertical column and you don't homogenize the sample, you keep it whole, and you use the natural geology to direct your lixiviant through. But that is not the ANSTO process. Their process is different, but that other process is used elsewhere. So we were sort of prepared for that method, and we left some saprolite in the sample to be able to enable that process if it was going to be required. And look, we're learning as we go, Kevin. I think when you're doing something for the first time, like we are with in situ recovery of paleo or sand-hosted ionic rare earths, there's going to be a little bit of trial and error. But I think the positive is, Kevin, is the biggest truth teller is going to be in the next 6 months for us, when we can take this to the field and do an in-field tracer study.
So at the minute, this is being tested in a lab effectively on a small sample.
Yeah, correct. Correct. Yeah. So
and you have mixed it with some stuff, gone through the process, got pretty exceptional results even from that situation, to be honest, but it took a lot longer, obviously. And now you've sped that up by 150 times, basically. If it's gone from 150 days to 24 hours is pretty sensational, because 150 days would have been expensive, to say the least, but at the same time, once you started the process, then 150 days you were just then on a treadmill of it coming out. Yeah, but now 24 days it's gone. But coming back to this raise, and you've managed to raise 1.7 million in the crappiest market I've ever seen in my entire life. Congratulations, especially as it's only at a slight discount. The scenario obviously is that the geologist guys who know all about this project, we've interviewed them as well with yourself, have put a huge chunk of money in and increased their amount. So they obviously have a lot of confidence in this. Otherwise, they wouldn't be sticking their life savings in this, I'm assuming.
Yeah, look, we're very fortunate to have the support of our major shareholders. They've been very successful in the past, and they see a significant opportunity here. And look, I think that their investment shows their confidence in what we're defining. And look, I think, yeah, you're right. It's a tough market, and it's always challenging to determine when to pull the trigger on a raise. And I think what we're very excited about is, well, one, our major shareholders have shown their intent to keep providing support to the company. But what we've been able to do, Kevin, is we've done it at a time where we're about to deliver some pretty exceptional news to the market, producing our first mixed rare earth carbonate, this second bench scale test work. I'm pretty excited about what's coming. And now that we are very well funded to execute on a pretty significant resource drill out, hopefully we can see some great share price appreciation coming to the company in the coming months.
Yeah, let's hope so.
I was just looking at the sort of, the roadmap, let's say, Rupert, for the, obviously some of the proceeds from that funding. So there's quite a lot of things that are to break down. You've got the affecting air core and sonic core drilling to support the maiden paleo channel. You've got the expanded air core drilling to test the priority paleo channel targets. You've got, as you mentioned, the scaled ISR testing for the MREC. You've got the in-field permeability testing as well to replicate the bench scale, but in the field. You've got the scoping study. So there's plenty of work ahead, right?
Heaps of work ahead, Phil. So look, we have results pending on our maiden mixed rare earth carbonate that will come to market in the coming weeks. We have those results for that second bench scale. We're going to be up in the field from the 11th of December doing stakeholder engagement. And look, I'd like to think that we're going to be able to get a rig in the field before Christmas. So look, with that kind of time frame and leading into next year, we've got plenty of catalysts to be able to bring to the market. And it's at a pretty good and exciting point in the journey of any company. I think the one thing that is probably a little bit confusing for some investors is what our strategy has been this year in us focusing purely on metallurgy and permeability. And look, really, when we look at this, Phil, and we've got to treat our shareholders' money like it's our own, we want to address where the biggest risk of this project is up front. And we really feel like the work that we've done with ANSTO over the last 6 months has really demonstrated what we wanted to achieve. Like if you asked me 12 months ago, what do you want to see? I'd say I want to see 50% recoveries. I want to see it at low acid consumption. I want to see impurity ratios of, I would have probably said 5-1, and we're up over 10-1. So all these things that we've hit what we would have said as KPIs, and that gives us huge confidence. And I think that's why we've gone to the market and we've raised a significant amount of cash to be able to get us a long way through our work program going forwards.
Yeah, I think you've done it as sort of almost a different way than other explorers. Is you've rather than proving up your resource, you've effectively looked at the processing methods and how to maximize and get the production right, and then looking at the scoping and then the resource. Whereas all your junior explorers would normally prove up and then do a mine design and the planning and the processing facility based on those results.
Yeah, and look, there's the challenge with rare earths is a lot of projects come unstuck in the metallurgy, and it's very hard to engineer solutions for commodities like rare earths and other critical minerals projects that have very volatile markets. So we've taken the approach that if we can demonstrate a very low-cost pathway to producing a flow sheet, we're confident we're going to be able to define a resource of significance. So let's address that challenge first, and that really de-risks what we're doing going forwards. So I think we've hit a pretty important crossroad in our journey, and now it's full steam ahead.
Yeah, Ishtar Resources did the same thing in Kazakhstan. They tested it and then realized it wasn't going to work, and then dropped the project with Alex. I think it was the wise way to do it, to be honest. It's like you now know it's a work, it's a goer, and now the money's come in. One of the questions on my mind is, what is the area that this could be done over, and how much of that do you already own, and is the potential to expand that so that you can have a bigger area and a longer mine life, as you go ahead and do this in the ground?
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. Look, if you look at what we've done, and we've utilised all the data that we've had at hand. A lot of historic drilling's been done focused on uranium, and what we've been able to define in that is a significant mineralisation footprint. We've modelled 139 square kilometres of this mineralisation over just Boland alone. And look, we've been aggressive in picking up ground over the last 12 months. We've expanded this position to over a prospective 2,000 square kilometres of this paleochannel geology, and we'll work to try and get more. We want to be the biggest and the best and the only player doing this, and we're in the right jurisdiction to do it. So let's get our hands on the ground while we can.
And how big do you think it could be? You said 2,000 square kilometers. How big is 2,000 square kilometers if you made it a country?
Oh, look, it's the size of a lot of European countries, or bigger than. I think it's probably about the same size as Georgia. But look, it takes about 4.5, 5 hours of driving going 110 kilometers an hour to go from one end to the other. So it's a big...
Holy moly. So we're talking about a big area.
We are. But I think the important bit is that area, the process of mining that we're looking at, Kevin, and the area that it is, it's broadacre farmland. It's not the kind of country that isn't amenable to this. Like, we think we can integrate this into the cropping rotations, particularly if we're getting these quick and fast permeabilities. So yes. Our impact on stakeholders and environmental, we expect to be very low, and we really look forward to showing that in the scoping study.
Kev, it's the size of Luxembourg or Samoa, apparently, according to the internet.
Okay, and that's only where you've got now. It could be bigger than that, obviously. Exactly. So if you get more land, and I presume the land, when you're saying it, you're not actually buying the land; you're just buying the mineral rights on the land.
Yeah. So exploration licenses give you the rights to explore for the minerals, and then you obviously need to go through the approvals process to convert them to mining leases. Look, to put it in context, though, of how big do you need and what do you need, we're pretty confident that what we have at Boland is going to be sufficient to give us a mine life that exceeds a decade. So that's going to be enough to provide pretty robust economics when we get to defining that resource and working through a scoping study.
And part of this drilling that you're going to do on Boland, is this going to be to assess, are there sort of high strike points in terms of the mineralization within this area? So, or do you think it's fairly constant within the area, or you don't know at this moment?
Yeah, look, we have some confidence in consistency. You're always going to find your higher grade pockets, and what's important with this style of mineralization is what drives high grade is not just the enrichment of the rare earths, it's also the chemical conditions of the groundwater and the material that's in it. So we'll get some variability, but there'll certainly be high pockets. Look, you look at the sample that we tested, and it was 4,500 ppm, or under 0.5%. And for an ionic clay, that's exceptionally high. So hopefully we certainly define more of that, because I'd love to be able to define a significant resource at over 2,000 ppm, Kevin. That'd make me very happy.
Okay, well, I'm glad the geologist is going to be happy, but I've got two more questions for you. The first question would be, how, if at all, has the Chinese affected by basically them limiting some of these metals and I'm not sure rare earths involved, but like tungsten and what else was it that was put?
Gallium. There's
gallium. How does this affect the market for rare earths? Do you think the Chinese are going to try and shut the door on the rest of the world for these rare earths?
I'd hate to claim to being a well-renowned geopolitician, mate, but look, I think you can speculate that these minerals and commodities are getting more and more strategically important for countries' sovereignties, and they're going to play a pivotal role in advanced and Western countries trying to achieve decarbonisation targets and trying to be more efficient in our energy usage. And I think the great thing about rare earths is they're important in nuclear reactors, they're important in electric vehicles, and then they're still applicable in things like your electric drill and drones and anything that has a propeller in very modern appliances requires a certain amount of rare earths. I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic with China. They do control so much of the supply chain that it's going to take a long time for us to be able to develop alternate supply chains. And I think the great thing for us is if we can continue to hit our milestones as we develop this project, we can be cost competitive with China. And therefore, look, I want to be able to deliver the best price we can. And if that's from China, I hope I don't put our governments off by saying that, but I think in reality, we want to make sure that we're getting the best price for our product, and you need to look at all markets.
Yeah. Okay, so that's then my second question, which is we have critical minerals funding from the US, we have critical minerals funding from Europe. I presume there's something similar in Australia to protect the assets that you have in country. Is the practicality of getting grants to help you move this from, say, pre-feasibility study to feasibility study and then to start producing? Because I presume the capex on this isn't going to be huge because you're not digging a mine effectively. You are on the ground squirting some water. I mean, I know that's very simplistic, but ultimately that's what you do.
Yeah, you're right. Look, good questions. And yes, there is certainly been funding deployed in Australia for critical minerals projects. There's great tax incentives for producing critical mineral mines to help really improve that cash flow up front. I think what is a delicate balance, though, is securing the offtakes to be able to finance an operation. And whilst soft financing or soft loans from governments is great because that's an endorsement on your project, you need to come up with the right mixture of future commercial selling points and financing. So, look, that's all stuff that we'll have ahead of us, Kevin. And look, I'm really looking forward to working through that. We're already speaking to off-takers. There's a lot of interest from Europe and Asia and also the States. So we need to assess it all as it comes. And I think the great thing for us is if we can be that really low-cost producer of heavy rare earths, we can have a very important strategic source of them. So, look, let's be Switzerland at the moment and wait until we work out where the best deal comes from that.
You're not going to be Donald Trump and stick 25%, 50% tariffs on all these things, which I'm absolutely certain he's going to do. So your low-cost production could all of a sudden get a benefit because you're not going to get the tariffs applied to you because you're Australian. So I think you've got quite an advantage there, but maybe it's too early to talk about that right now. But yeah. Let's see how it all pans out.
It's going to be a really interesting few years, that's for sure, Kevin. I think we've got to get the popcorn out and watch the politics play out for sure.
And this week delivered two particularly disheartening R&S updates that have been gut-wrenching for both shareholders and us. First, Electric Guitar announced that its main trading subsidiary, 3 Radical Limited, is set to enter administration. This move comes after the abrupt end of significant investment talks and financial projections revealing funding shortfalls, compounded by a declining share price that hindered fundraising efforts and potential acquisitions. Despite recent investments in sales, marketing and AI-driven product development, 3 Radical has struggled to meet its financial obligations. The board is currently exploring options to stabilise the group's financial standing and plans to provide updates as they become available.
How you can come to the market 7 months ago? I mean, we're obviously been dealing with John Reagan. Somebody's pulled the plug. To the best of my knowledge, it's not Sanderson's. I think it's a foreign investor that pulled the plug in terms of giving them capital to continue on their journey, if you like. But really, you have to question 7 months down the line from IPO that they haven't been able to financially keep themselves right after raising money. It's just appalling, to be honest.
Yeah, it's an absolute shocker, really. As you say, I
think
science
didn't see it coming.
No.
Obviously, the share price has had a tumultuous time over the last period of time, gone from 2.1p down to 0.25 or whatever it was, and I think it was below that, so 90% drop in that. So somebody knew and was bailing out in a big way. I thought maybe it was being shorted but but I'm not convinced now. I think somebody was probably bailing out, but total speculation on my behalf. I have no idea. But yeah, horrific. Lots of people lost money, yeah, including us. And yeah, not good at all.
No. And then obviously adding to the distress, Incanthera reported receiving unsupported allegations of potential patent infringement related to its skin plus cell product formulations, while the company considered these claims to be without merit and is actively seeking a swift resolution. The launch of skin plus cell has been postponed. Consequently, Incanthera has retracted its previous revenue and profit forecast for the fiscal year ending 31st of March 2025, which were based on anticipated sales of the product line. The board remains determined and optimistic about the future launch of Skin Plus Cell and will provide further updates when possible.
So there's two events here. Obviously the out of the blue, this infringement, and the legal things behind that, and then the second thing was just the delay for the rollout. We did speak to them, and they said they were not connected in any way. So you know, I think you have a very distinct choice here. The first choice is just wait it out and see. It's back below the price that people bought in at for the initial raise before this all happened, which I think was at 7p. And when we first discovered it this time last year, I think it was, and we first bought in, it was around 6.5p, I think. And it went all the way up into the 30s and then has come crashing back down again. So you've either got the opportunity of a lifetime to invest again now, and if these two scenarios get sorted out, then this is going to be a massive company, massive company. Alternatively, if it doesn't get sorted out, yeah,
definitely. I mean, it's undoubtedly challenging, but obviously crucial to address them and understand their implications, and then move forward with them. But let's just hope that the Incanthera can sort out these allegations, and hopefully there's nothing in them, and as you say, they can move forward and remain optimistic about the future launch of Skin Plus Cell. So let's keep an eye on that one. What have you been up to this week, Kev? I mean, I've been into the city. EPP had an evening on Wednesday, very well attended. Ben Klube was there. Obviously sat down with Ben for sort of 5 minutes before it all kicked off. Ben Klube, CEO of Energy Pathways, came to market. What was it, probably about a year ago? Was it just?
It was December last year.
December last year, was it? About a year ago, yeah. So it's interesting what they've achieved since they've come to market. Because I mean, it was quite a muted. Let's say it was a muted IPO in the sense of, obviously it was well supported. It was a kind of based on legacy holders within a company called Dial Square, if you remember back at the time. So there was legacy sort of shareholders in there. And in fact, I actually met some of the shareholders last night from Dial Square who were talking about their investment, and they were very happy with how things were going at EPP. Obviously, it came to market around 4p. It dropped back to about 1.4p at its lows only about 2 or 3 months ago now. In fact, it was probably 3 months ago that it was at these lows. And since then, it's gone on to the highs of about 13.5p, and it's sitting currently about 10.7p, just under 11p. So what do you make for not only of the share price movement, but what do you make of the way the company has brought on? They've got the grant, they've got the working with the government, they've got they've got the financing in place, they've got the pre-feed, working towards pre-feed and towards a final investment decision by the end of 25. How do you think the whole Marum project is going?
Well, I have to say it's a bit like Jurgen Klopp when he joined Liverpool. I have to make believers out of you. And basically, Ben Klube had to make believers out of certain people, I think, the people who have become the main supporters and shareholders of this company, because he didn't have anything when it came to market. And don't take that the wrong way, but he didn't actually physically have, a way forward to make this happen.
Yeah.
So all he has done this year is effectively put the pieces in place to now know that he can make it happen. And I think the big turning point was the loan deal that they got, which basically gave them the finance to move all the way through till the end of next year to say, now we've got a financial decision, and it should be game on. Now they've incorporated themselves with the government. They're in the plans of the government. The government desperately needs this. Okay, not only from the sale of the gas, but from the storage of the hydrogen, which will be basically the stored from the excess wind power. If they don't store that, they're going to lose a lot of finance, basically. So it needs to be stored and then reused in another way. Yeah, and it looks like if he gets one of these away, it's like a cookie cutter experience that he should be able to do this again and again and again and again. And that would mean that I think shareholders get in today. Obviously, it would have been better if you got in 2 months ago. But if you get in today, then I think you're going to get potentially dividends in a 2, 3 years' time. Obviously, it's got to work. They've got to get the finances. But now, as Klopp said, I have to make believers of you. Now people believe that it's going to happen. And not only that, the UK desperately needs it. So if they don't do it, who's going to do it? So that's my thoughts. How was the evening anyway? I heard you bumped into the legend that is Zach Mir.
Yeah, the Sith Lord, as he's been touted on various Sith Lord dark. Yeah, Zach was there. Zach patted me on the back.
Was he sober?
Yeah, I think he was tucking into his 5th gin and tonic of the night by the time that I caught up with him. But yeah, it was good to catch up with him. Really, he was his usual sort of cheeky self. He's sort of winding people up as he does.
Did you get on the subject of lift?
Yeah, we mentioned it a little briefly. Obviously, we saw the RNS earlier in the week or previous week that I think it was the final audited results for the year ended sort of 30th of June 2024, where he talked about Myriad. I think they said in there that it demonstrated the resilience in the challenging markets and 39% rise in effectively operating cash inflow to £126,000, and then there was a 5% increase in the post-tax profits to 135 grand. Little bit on that, I think it was the Trans-Africa Energy, which was the Ghanaian energy project where they went in, or Lift went in for the £750,000 convertible loan note. That's been extended to December 2024. Obviously, the loan's value is written down due to funding delays, but it'd be nice to see a glimmer of hope there in the potential that they've extended it out now to December 2024. And is there going to be a masterstroke there? Remains to be seen. I just don't know.
Flip of a coin, I think, mate. We've waited this long, so let's see.
Yeah.
It's not going to be worth any less in January than it is now. So
yeah,
could be worth more from what the RNS says. And I don't know, probably Zach is forever positive, but let's see where it all goes. The whole thing's been a disaster from the beginning, but let's see.
Yeah, so other people I met on the night, there was quite a few shareholders there. It was good to caught up with Belle Courtois was there, Big Gib was there, sat down with them, spoke to them. They're very happy with the way things are going. Obviously spoke to a few of the brokers. The GIS were there, and yeah, met some very interesting people. It's always a good networking event, isn't it? Going up to these city do's at the into the city of London. So.
And tell us just a little bit, because I don't know whether there was anything. The presentation was energy pathways and priority AI. So what is priority AI?
So Priority AI are a company that are going to be coming to market potentially in December, although to be confirmed, but it should happen pretty soon. They're going to do an RTO into a company that's already on the AIM market. And they're effectively an AI company with 4 different offerings. They've got like a funding offering. They've got an advisor offering that does like an NED type role where you can advise companies on their, to interact with their kind of shareholders or their customers. You've got the sandbox side of things as well, and then you've got the marketing as well. So effectively 4 offerings of a different, let's say, products within this Priority AI company. And I actually met some of the marketing staff there, the three young girls who are going to be helping, can come on board with companies. And it's almost like a subscription model. I think it's only around about £500 a month to plug in and to become a customer of Priority AIs. And they've got quite a lot of companies already registered there. But they've done a couple of these events now. They've done Energy Pathways, and they did one in the city about a month ago for a company, for a Brazilian themed alcohol company, beer company called Favela. who have got a really good product, gluten-free, organic product out there, and also ethical in the sense that the proceeds that from the sales of the favelas beer go, something like 20% of them go back into the Brazilian favelas and help the street people. You know what a favela is. Effectively, it's a shanty town in Brazil, and they help the people, and it goes into the to the people there. So very, very interesting, very ethical. But yeah, Priority AI, it certainly looks exciting in a time when there's not actually that many AI companies on the market. Obviously, we saw Gen IP came to the market about a month ago, 2 months ago. Generative AI. We spoke to Melissa Cruz on that one. There's another couple listed on Aquas, but I think it's quite an exciting time, isn't it, to be investing in these tech companies now?
It is. I think the Gen IP though is very simplistic compared to what Priority AI should become if they manage to build it out. So yeah, that's good. That should be very interesting. Anything else we should be talking about on the
Yeah, I'll
market?
tell you what I did this week as well. I went, you wait like almost a year to go to the cinema, and then I went twice within about 4 days. The first one, I took the girls to see this Wicked, which is obviously it's a film adaptation of the musical on Broadway and in the West End. Features Ariana Grande as Glinda and Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba. Massive amount of attention. You've probably seen adverts over there. You must have been hiding under a rock if you haven't seen it. But basically, Ariana Grande, the pop singer, portrays Glinda. She's been praised for the comedic timing and the vocal performance. I'm not a massive fan of musicals, to be honest, Kevin. I don't think there's probably many blokes who would actually say, yeah, hands up, go and see a musical. But I actually really enjoyed it, and I thought Ariana Grande was great. Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba, the Wicked Witch, was brilliant. It's almost like a prequel to The Wizard of Oz. So you kind of learn about the flying monkeys, how they were made to fly. You learn about how the Wicked Witch went from sort of like good to evil. Yeah, I'd recommend it. I'd recommend taking your kids to see it if you get the opportunity.
Yeah. Our Emma's 9 and she gets scared very easily, so I'm not sure she'll
Yeah,
be
I
up
think
for
it's
it. So
I think it's a 12, so you
yeah,
might
no,
want
they're too young for it. Yeah, I
too young
wanted to
to
go
get.
and see Gladiator 2
Yeah,
actually.
well,
I
that's what
haven't.
brings us on to that one. So yeah, I went to see Gladiator 2. Obviously, Ridley Scott, set about 16 years after the original film's events. Focuses on Lucius, the nephew of Commodus, and it's excellent. I mean, it's very Hollywood. It's very, as you'd expect. It's come on a long way since the original one, which is probably it's like 16, 17 years ago that film came out, where we had Russell Crowe as Maximus, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. The new guy in it is a great actor. You got Denzel Washington in there, as playing one of the other lead roles. I'm not going to say too much about it because I think you have to go to the cinema, Kevin, see it. It's one of those big screen
Yeah,
movies.
it
There's a
was
lot.
released on the 31st of May 2000, mate, 24 years ago.
Was it 24? Okay, so there you go. Shows our time. 16 years that was just going off the timelines of when it's shot after the original one, or portrayed to be, but in Rome.
Oh,
So, but some amazing scenes in the Colosseum. Like the original was great, wasn't it? But the whole effects, how much they've come on since the original. So I'd recommend that. Liverpool were too good for Bellingham, Modric, and Mbappe, weren't they,
ooh,
last night? I mean, what did you make of that?
come on, you Reds! I think we played them off the park. Like they almost didn't have. They didn't have much of a chance. They got a bit of a lucky penalty. Yeah, good diving from the Madrid player.
That's
Uh,
standard, isn't it?
we had uh, we had a penalty as well, which was stick on, and then flipping Salah put it wide. So it could have been two, could have been three, but we didn't look like we were going to concede. I think the funniest one was when Van Dijk decided to go shoulder to shoulder with Mbappe, and Mbappe went up in the air, down, pretty much landed on his head and didn't know what had hit him. So yeah, they're not a force to be reckoned with just right now. I'm afraid Real Madrid.
Yeah, and
They're gonna have a they're gonna have a problem getting in the top eight, that's for sure. And then we've got Man City, five
yeah,
losses
I'm
on
gonna
the
say
run. He's never done this in his entire career.
he's
So
going for
will we
six
make
though.
it
He's going for a
six?
six. He's going for six though, isn't he? Apparently.
Will we make it six on Sunday? I think it is at Anfield. Liverpool against Manchester City, for Liverpool to go 11 points clear And I will not say that means we're going to win the league, because I don't think it will, because there's a long, long, long way to go. But we don't look like we're going to lose too many games.
No, they're looking good. I mean, and do you think Pep Guardiola, he scratched himself? He said someone asked him, have you been self-harming? And he's all laughing it off. But do you think the guy's crumbling now?
He did apologise for that statement the next day. He put a statement out to apologise for it. I think, I think anybody, if you've not experienced that before, then you're gonna have issues with it, aren't you? You know, and it's important actually, because I've come across 2, 3 people, and even myself had issues this week. Is, as men, because most of the people who do listen to this are men. Sorry for women who are listening. This is that, just be careful at this time of the year as well, your mental health. And if you are in a bad situation, talk to somebody, because it's not a good situation. I had a couple of people, nothing to do with finance, they're friends and other people who, were speaking to me, and they're in a big bit of a black hole, you
Yeah.
know. And
Which is
sometimes we put
really good.
ourselves in that black hole.
Men don't
Um,
talk about it, as you say, and
yeah.
there is actually there's a really good Facebook page, and I'd urge anyone who's struggling to go onto it. It's called MATE, Men and Their Emotions, and it's set up by Daniel O'Reilly. You might know Dan O'Reilly. I know you know him, Kev, because we have a laugh with him. He's basically the
Yeah,
guy,
he's
Dan
about
the
as
Laugh.
subtle as a brick in the face, isn't he? But it's
Yeah.
it's a good subtle.
He's really good. So the work he does with for men and their emotions is it's a charity that he's registered. He set it up because when he was struggling, there's 47,000 members in this group now. It's only male members in there, and again, that's not a slight against women. It's because he wanted to create a group where men could openly talk because men don't talk in front
Yeah.
of women, as you know. So he created this group, and it's phenomenal. And you see anonymous people saying, I'm trying to leave my missus, been telling her for months. It's all problems like that. Has anyone had feelings about depression? There's so many supporting people there. People are reaching out saying, look, if you're in my town, I'll come and talk to you. It's a really, really good place to go for men who are struggling with their emotions and need a not a shoulder to cry on, but need someone to talk to. So I'd recommend to join the group. As I say, it's on Facebook, Men and Their Emotions. I'll put the link in the description for anyone who wants to join. And
And
Dan
the same
O'Reilly's
goes, I suppose, for all those that aren't having a problem, okay? Think about it and listen to some other men if you
yeah,
if you have the chance, because
yeah,
you don't know how you could help them just by
yes,
listening, guiding them a little bit, and helping them out, because it really does make a difference at times like that. So, yeah, that occurred to me just because, yeah, I had a bad day this week. One day was very bad. But actually, what happened was 2 or 3 people also contacted me, nothing to do with what I was not feeling good about, you know, and they were having problems. Like, I
yeah,
went over another bump, only this time in my wife's car, blew the radiator out. Okay, so that doesn't make you feel good. Then we have different things that happen in the stocks. Then we have something that happens in the house, and all of the things, and you're like, ah,
yeah.
yeah.
Compound you,
And
yeah,
we're all party to this sometimes, no matter what our financial position is, what
no,
our
I agree.
investment decisions are, what everything. We all sometimes just get a bit too much. So
Yeah,
when we get that bit too much, try and step away. And I said it to you when we were having a discussion this week. Just be still.
yeah,
Yeah.
be still. But also, I think, like, I mean, as you know that I do, I have a set routine where I do breathing exercises in the morning, and people laugh at me. They hear me doing, excessive exhaling and inhaling. I do that 3 rounds of that. I feel fantastic after it. I have a cold shower. I go out and meditate. I go and walk. I have these things, and it all helps. You've seen a change. Like when I started this job, I was living off nervous energy. Now I can handle a lot more than. And I'm not saying that it can cure all the things, but when you take a moment, step back, and be in the moment, and have this sense of this, as you say, almost be still, think about it, reflect before you react. it makes a massive difference to stressful situations and the way that you can handle these build up of emotions. Because you'll come to me and say, I'm struggling. I say, look, mate, just take a moment back from it, sit back from it, do what you need to do, take some time away, go for a walk, meditate, breathe, and you'll come back and you say, I feel I've had time to think and I've been still, and it makes a big difference. So anyone struggling, please do look at taking some time out with your loved ones, speak to people. As I say, go on the group if you're struggling, Men and Their Emotions, and think about other ways that you can, getting out with nature, just walking for 20 minutes every day, with trees in a nature and lovely environment, if you can get there, and take some mindfulness, I think is the word.
Yeah, we're not trying to be psychologists, by the way, but as men, we often like internally keep it in, and it's not a big problem to us. Yet we're outwardly, or not outwardly, but we're getting more and more frustrated inside. And sometimes you just gotta say it to people, haven't you? I mean, we see it on the groups. There's some great venters out there, and they vent to us as well. And at us, and that isn't very healthy, by the way, for anybody. But when you do that, but the fact of the matter is, if you're going to do that to a tree. If you're going to share your emotions with somebody, that you feel vulnerable, you feel upset, you feel let down. Because more often than not, as men, we sort of, ashamed is the wrong word, but we feel guilt about whatever has happened, or, especially when we've lost money, or there is an element of I'm not very good. I'm not very well. Well, it isn't you. Okay, it was your decision, but it isn't you. And I suppose that really has got to be the thing that we finish on, other than "Come on, you Reds." By the time you probably listen to this, we will be in progress against Manchester City, and if we win and go 11 points clear, I'm going to be getting the red and white bunting out for Christmas. We'll see how it all goes.
Good. And you're coming over next week, and obviously we got a meeting to attend. We got Minds and Money Resourcing tomorrow in London at the Business Centre. So if anyone's going to be there on the Wednesday, Thursday, please do come along, say hello to us. You'll see us walking around the halls, no doubt, with microphones in hand, interviewing a series of companies. Do you want to read out some of the companies?
Yeah, the companies that we think are relevant, I suppose, is CMET, CAML, Conroy Gold, Cush, which is tin, SML, which is tungsten, tin, copper, FMET, well, that's Fulcrum Metals, isn't it?
Fulcrum Metals, yeah, that's Ryan and Aidan.
Yeah, Keefe, copper and gold,
Kefi,
KMR, which is zircon. I'm not sure what that is all about. Then we've got Palm, which is the one next close to First Class Metals. We should be getting some news on that shortly. Actually,
Panther Metals, that's Darren Hazelwood.
Yeah, but he's after copper, zinc, and nickel, whereas the First Class guys are gold in this particular scenario. Though there is obviously the potential for copper, because I think the two things go together. Then you've got Thor Mining, which is gold, and I'm not sure where that is. And then you've got Ton, which I think
Tungsten West.
Tungsten West. I'm interested.
That's down in Devon, mate. That's
I know,
an interesting one.
Tungsten and tin. I'm very interested in that one. That's not that far away from our friend Charles, is it really? So yeah, we're going to try and catch up with as many of them as we can. We've put some feelers in to speak to them all. Kelvin, who's the organizer of that event, is going to put us in touch with those. So if you follow any of those stocks, then we're hopefully going to have a special next week from there, which will be our Sunday roast, which will hopefully be catching up with some of them. Whether we get them all, I don't know, but we will do our best on Wednesday and Thursday. I'm also meeting up with, I think we said we were going to meet up with Oliver for lunch, and I said I was going to have coffee with Alex from Tech Minerals as well, and maybe there'll be a few others as well. Just depends on how it all goes, and so
good.
There you go.
All right. Well, on that note, I think I will say have a great weekend, everyone, or what's left of it. And if you like what you heard, please do subscribe and hit the bell icon so you get any further notifications of any future episodes.
And be thankful, guys.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.